try to make this short, brief, because the other two videos I put up, and I didn't get to write down part of it, and it sounds a bit rambling. And this whole subject, because of the timeline and everything, unless you care to put it together, sounds a bit that way. I did want to say I just looked up the Audie Murphy because I remember telling about mind control murders way back, a long, long time ago. I just didn't know the mechanism used at the time, that being mind control. I knew that murders were being done in patterns, and I said back when Audie Murphy, the plane went down, that it was takedown, that they were murdered. I was connecting the Murphy. I was told when I worked at Warren House Apartments and worked for the district attorney in '80 that Murphy's Law, anything happened would happen. And I continued because the murders that were done in patterns deliberately, because mind control is invisible, so it's hard to prove. I continued telling about them. I was flown out to Flint's because the person that shot him in Lawrenceville, Georgia, was programmed to shoot him and kill his attorney. And I was flown out there and ran in a campaign in '83 and furnished a car and then just put on the side of the road, really. I came to Roanoke, got here at 3 o'clock in the morning with a sweater on, I think, and freezing to death, no money and no food. I was kept just no place to go. I ended up living on the Appalachian Trail for quite a while, a long time, years. And I knew that Audie Murphy, I heard some of them tell it, but I knew that the plane had gone down in Virginia way back then, but I didn't think much about it. But I know, and I'm not connected to this, I just now looked this up today because I was thinking about something else, and I happened to look it up. And I saw the similarities between, I never knew I was going to end up here in Roanoke, but the similarities between Audie Murphy, just before he died, he took off, number one, he took off from Peachtree to DeKalb Airport in a twin engine, and he was en route to Martinsville, Virginia, and the plane started having trouble, and he was going to land at Galax, and then he was going to land at Roanoke, where I'm at now, and have been here since '86. And then he didn't make it. It crashed at, near Catawba, and I think that's Brush Mountain. Anyway, my son, let me try to go back. My son Mark, with all that's happened to us, went to work, so there's a timeline there, but it's still, all this gets to be too much to be a coincidence. My son Mark, I was writing a book about mind control, and I'd found out then how the murders were being committed. I'd worked for a doctor who had put a chip in a patient in a heart bypass. He was cardiovascular, and I started finding out that you could control the man. He's, like I say, head of a corporation, and he wouldn't even know it, that his decision-making, well, you could kill him if you wanted to, or make him do anything you wanted to. So I started writing about them. Wayne Williams, that was one of them. If you want to go back and look up the list, is the name of the book. But my son, there was so much. I was trying to write the book, and I thought, oh, God, please, maybe if I can get the book published, it'll help people and know what's going on. It's called MD, A License to Kill. Well, people think doctors are gods, and right now I have been afraid. I've had so much done, lived worse than any pauper or treated worse than any criminal. But my son Mark, so much was happening to the boys. And I remember Roger Thackett was killed because he knew what was being done to me, some stuff. He worked at, I lived at Moonraker doing the book, and Larry Flint was shot. I mentioned him because everybody knows who Larry Flint was. Shot in Lawrenceville, and later I was flown out to his home in '83 in a campaign. But back at that time, I lived at Moonraker, and it was on Delta Road. Well, I moved May the 8th of 79, just a few blocks away on Bentley Drive. It was Laurelwood Apartments. And my son Mark had gone to work for Tenneco on the corner, and that's where Roger Thackett worked. Well, he observed what was being done to me, and but it wasn't just that. Mark went to work. He worked 2 nights, I think, pumping gas, and it terrified him to death. Roger Thackett was murdered. 2 black men came in, and the cop just missed it because somebody had called. Mark wasn't there, but he had left that day and worked and pumped gas. And so much was being done to the boys that cars tampered with. They'd go out on the interstate, and it was just awful. Sugar put in the lifters and everything, and you go into the cops, and you get the letter from the FBI and U.S. Attorney, and it doesn't stop. But anyway, Mark then, after Roger Thackett was killed, he was shot by the 2 black men, as he was getting in his car to leave that night, and the cops came up just a minute or two too late to save him. And Mark went to work for Epps Air Service at Peachtree Cab. That's where the plane took off with Audie Murphy back in 71. So it's almost like a lot of it is I've come up here, and some of the things that have happened has been like retracing some of that. Murphy, the plane started going out, and like I say, I think I'm being redundant. He was going to stop, and they were going to stop in Galax. Galax is where the retired Virginia State Trooper Carl Barton and his wife told me, Linda, in 2014, that this is how we move you. They took me to Corporate Suites in Tanglewood, and so this is how we move you with chemicals. Well, I'm allergic to chemicals. I have an immune disorder that when I'm around toxic fumes, my immune system attacks itself, and I really get sick and arthritis and all that, and it affects all your organs if you're around toxic fumes, as I've been put. But anyway, he lives in Galax. Well, the plane was headed before it had trouble and was going to stop in Galax. It was headed for Martinsville. Well, so much was happening, it called the Roanoke. That's where I've ended up trying to live since 86. That's where I am now. They call the Roanoke Airport here, but they crashed before near Christiansburg, Blacksburg, which is next door to me here, where the mind control murders happened at Virginia Tech, the mass shooting in April of 07. But anyway, I was on the trail. I'm trying to make it so it makes sense, and it's so horrible that people have. I lived on the Appalachian Trail plain and simply to have a place to be. I starved and I froze and I walked and I almost died up there more than once, and nobody wanted to help. In other words, it was almost like they'd just rather have me locked up and, But anyway, the Appalachian Trail that usually helps people, they came up, and God knows you should see what they did to me. These are people that are supposed to be upstanding citizens. And I'm going to say this, WDBJ7, I couldn't believe it. They wouldn't print any of this about the mind control murders, about who I am. I found out I'd been kidnapped, and that they wouldn't print any of it. And this is the media I found out had known before I did about my kidnapping, my real name and everything. But anyway, the WDBJ7 and I guess the rest of the channels printed lies. You should see what the people said and printed about me. But anyway, Catawba is where the plane went down, close to Catawba. And mountain is right out here from me, between here and Roanoke, and I'm not going to go any further on it.